officially here. Closures began today for the massive I-696 project in Oakland County, where drivers will not be able to use a portion of I-696 for 2 long years.
2 years.
Welcome to 7 News Detroit at 6. I'm Carolyn Clifford.
And I'm Glenda Lewis. Thank you for joining us tonight. The orange barrels are out as MDOT crews begin their work eastbound I-696 from Losser to 75.
7 News Detroit reporter Ruta Olsonida is listening to a driver and a resident who lives along the detour route.
So before we get into all that, let me show you on the map where this is relative to other parts of the Detroit area. So here's the Detroit metro area. Let's turn on the traffic so we can see the road network. Now, this is Detroit proper. This is the core city. 696 kind of forms like the northern edge of a sort of belt line or sort of partial ring road around Detroit. And we talked about ring roads and how most cities tend to have them. And this closed area, which you can see right here with Google, is going from here all the way to Interstate, is that 75? Yep. So you're running all through here. And this is very accurate. When I was in Detroit, the only area that I really encountered traffic was on 696 with the construction. And look at that. You see how green Detroit is? That is amazing. That's amazing. It's 5 million people in this metro area. Look at that. Look how green that is. I'm telling you, you want light traffic? Come to the Detroit metro area.
And getting an update on the construction from MDOT.
Ruta joins us live in our 7 live drive vehicles so you can see if there's any added congestion from all the 696 traffic moving to the mile roads.
So Ruta, you've been out there. How's it looking?
And I do want to, for those not familiar with the Detroit area, I want to talk about the mile roads. You guys probably remember that movie Eminem, 8 Mile. In Detroit, they have all the east-west major arterial roads are numbered by miles. So each one is a mile apart. So the reason they mention that relative to 696 is because if people aren't using 696, they're going to be using one of these so-called mile roads. You see right here, this is 12-mile road right here. You go further down, you have 10-mile road. And as you go further south, the numbers get lower. Then there's 9-mile road. And then here is the 8-mile road, made famous by Detroit's own Eminem. And 8-mile road marks the boundary of the city of Detroit proper and the suburbs, if I recall. Yep. So once you get south of 8 Mile, that is Detroit proper. Here's 7 Mile. So there you go. And you see how 696 runs parallel to the mile roads. So any delays or construction on 696 will probably push traffic to the mile roads. That's what she was talking about.
Hi guys, good evening. So we showed you the exact detour that MDOT put out for the community in the last hour, and that actually looked okay, but MDOT recognizes that not everyone's going to take it because it does go all the way down Lodge to Highland Park and you got to get back up on 75. What they realize is a lot of people will just take the mile road. So we're on 10 Mile right now in the area of Oak Park, and it's a little bit more congested.
And this is something else that's happened, especially in the age of GPS. Everyone has a GPS app on their phone. See, back in the day before we had smartphones and everybody had Google Maps or some type of navigation app, when a major highway was closed, you would follow the detour signs that were given to you by the state DOT or the city telling you, hey, take this road because that road is closed. What most people do now, rather than necessarily following those detour routes, is they'll type into Google Maps or Apple Maps or whichever one they use, and they'll follow those detours, which can often take you through the city or routes that the DOT didn't want you to use, because usually the DOT wants traffic diverted from a highway to use another highway, not necessarily a city street. This is something else we saw when Interstate 95 collapsed in Philadelphia. Pennsylvania DOT or PennDOT, they had their own detour route, same thing with New Jersey DOT, but what they were finding is that a lot of people were just typing in where they needed to go into their GPS app, and you will see a lot more traffic on local city streets rather than people actually following those detours. So it's something that traffic engineers that work at the Department of Transportation are still trying to adjust to, is how to incorporate GPS apps into getting people around, especially when it comes to detours and their effect on which routes people decide to take in the event that their preferred route is closed. So let's see what they found with this drive-through.
Than usual as everyone figures out their new routes for the next 2 years.
We all have to do what we have to do, so I'll figure out my route. One doesn't work and it's too traffic, I'll try a different one.
Residents like Barb Hitchcock, who live right off Mile Roads in Oakland County, they know that MDOT 696 construction project that kicked off Monday from Lawser to I-75, it's going to be a headache.
I mean, you've had your fair share of construction every now and then, but how are you feeling about this one?
Well, this one's a big one. Right out my front door here, and it's going to take 2 years.
She says she worries about the noise and the fact that the official detour for this project is lengthy, and most people will just take Mile Roads to get around.
Yes, see, look at that. Look at that detour. That's like, look at that. Who's gonna do that? So they're telling you to go use M10, go all the way down to Highland Park. See, exactly like I said, like DOTs will divert, their preferred detour will always be another interstate or another highway, another freeway for freeway traffic. But a lot of people are going to use GPS instead, and GPS is going to tell you clearly that you can take one of the mile roads. Look at that, because that looks like 8 Mile right there. So if you're right here, you can get on one of the mile roads and get there a lot faster. But I get why the DOT is doing this, because they try to keep, one of the purposes of freeways is to keep traffic off of surface streets. They prefer to keep that traffic on another freeway rather than having people drive through the city. But hey, they're going to do what they do. So let's continue.
Get around.
We have the detour because we're looking at the big picture. We need to move close to 100,000 drivers a day. But as long as you're legally allowed to be on the road, you can take any road you want.
MDOT crews worked all throughout the day Monday to close down ramps and all eastbound lanes of 696 in the construction zone for this second installment of the Restore the Ruther project.
So it really is a conscious decision. It's the best for the safety of the community and really for the economy. We will have rebuilt all of 696 in the course of a decade.
Next year, the westbound side will be restored, but throughout the next 2 years, eastbound drivers will always have to find a detour.
Are you ready for the added traffic on already pretty busy Mile Roads?
No. God, no.
Drivers like Amy Shaw, they're already planning their alternate routes and practicing their patience.
But you know what? If it's to better the roads, then go ahead and do it and get it done.
MDOT hopes people follow in Amy's footsteps and plan ahead, as they expect the next few days will be the most stressful.
But after a few days and a couple weeks, it settles down.
So really the name of the game is patience and giving yourself a little extra time. So again, right now we're on 10 Mile. We're coming up on Coolidge in Oak Park. We've talked to residents, they said we've had months to prepare. We've done stories so they know what to expect. And MDOT says that this was the perfect storm of having that perfect amount of funding to get this done. And they say they won't have to touch 696 for decades to come. Guys.
2 years of.
All right, and before we go on to the next story, I do want to show you guys what this project is. Not everyone's familiar with the Detroit area. 696 Restore the Ruther. Now, like I mentioned on several videos, the Detroit metro area has not really grown in population for the past 50 years or so. So it's not them expanding the highway or building any new highway. That's not really done in Detroit. It's not necessary. Basically, this is a total rehabilitation, reconstruction of the existing highway. So if you look at it, you can see that it's done in stages, and basically freeway, pavement reconstruction, bridge repairs, replacement, drainage improvement, sign replacement, guardrail, and other safety improvements. So basically, yes, this is just a reconstruction of an existing highway. No actual expansion is taking place because Detroit doesn't need any new roads. Traffic already flows well. And it looks like everything, at least in this phase 1, should be wrapped up this year. Yeah, 96% complete. So yeah, that is I-696, restore the Ruther. Keep on moving, Michigan. Now this next story is from a state that is expanding and improving a roadway. And it's one that you guys can expect is always working on the roads because everyone is just moving there. Everyone is moving to Texas, especially this part of Texas. New Braunfels, which is a suburb of San Antonio, between San Antonio and Austin. So before we